Hey everyone, today I want to consider what the outside or real world believe happened to the survivors of Dead by Daylight when they were taken into the realm. Their sudden disappearances are certainly going to raise some questions. I also want to consider the possible consequences of their disappearances. Let's get into it. Dwight is left out in the woods after getting blackout drunk from his boss's moonshine on a team-building work trip. During the night, his co-workers and boss abandon him. Dwight is then taken by the entity from the woods. It's highly possible, therefore, that they are blamed for the disappearance and presumed death of Dwight, being the last people with him prior to his disappearance, and also leaving him after drinking too much moonshine. As it's his boss's family recipe moonshine, it's likely been illegally brewed, and the investigation into Dwight being missing would probably result in some repercussions for Dwight's boss. The only friend Dwight is mentioned to have is a co-worker, who presumably was with the group who left him in the woods, so not much of a friend really. Dwight therefore will likely simply go down as a tragic death, lost to the woods. Meg disappears after she goes for a run in the woods. The only indication to what the world believed happened to her was the line, "Search as they did, they never found her body." Therefore, Meg is probably assumed dead. With Colorado's dense woods, it's probably presumed she slipped and fell somewhere, or got lost. There were likely no witnesses around when she was taken, and her mother would have only seen her leave for the run. The main consequence of her disappearance is for her sick mother. It's pretty heartbreaking that her mother believes Meg is dead, and without Meg's care, it's possible she too dies sooner than she would have. Claudette takes a stroll in the woods during a bus ride. Not sure how that works, but hey. Maybe the bus stopped for a break or something and she went for a walk in the meantime. There is no indication with Claudette's disappearance that she was believed dead, so it's possible it's believed she ran away or is simply missing still. A bit like Meg, the only witnesses to the disappearance would be the others on the bus, I suppose. The main consequences of her disappearance are on her forum where she posted, who wondered where she was, and presumably her parents would be worried too, especially as they are back in Montreal, and she is elsewhere. Jake's disappearance is almost no surprise, as he frequently went off into the woods alone anyway, and was distant from his family. He's said to live off the grid on the edge of the woods. Before his disappearance, he hadn't spoken to his father in years, with only brief check-ins with his mother. After Jake doesn't call for a long time, Jake's mother calls the police. A search party searches for days, but he isn't found. Finally, he's declared to be another casualty of the woods. The greatest impact therefore is likely on Jake's mother. Nia's disappearance occurred after she was dared to tag Crota's Pren Asylum by her friends. There is no mention of a search for Nia, or a presumption of her death. I believe therefore she could also be assumed to have run away. Something fairly believable with her rebel persona, and constant tangles with the police. Her parents and friend Casey likely can attest to that, and may believe the same thing. For Laurie, we don't know exactly when she was taken, whether it was right after Halloween or a few months after. It's not clear. If it's directly after the events of the film, she is likely assumed dead, with her bleeding after a cut from Myers. If the blood is found and discovered as hers, then it's a safe presumption for everyone that she's dead. It's possible too that she could be presumed to have run away after the traumatic events of Halloween night. Ace, before he is taken, which we don't actually know where from, was said to have racked up too many debts, with debt collectors now searching for him, and likely coming to kill him after he would be unable to pay. The debt collectors assume he was tipped off and fled somewhere. If there are any police investigators, and Ace had any friends, this is the story that would probably stand. Ace ran away due to his overwhelming debt, and no one knows where he is now. I think largely due to Ace's seeming lack of friendly connections though, his disappearance wouldn't really raise red flags with anyone, and even those who he did know, they would probably understand why he would suddenly disappear, due to all his debts and the dangerous people he owed. Bill is incredibly straightforward. He's believed dead. After he goes to turn on a generator to save his group, he is killed. The absence of his body won't raise questions probably, due to the massive zombies that had surrounded him. It's possible a member of the original Left 4 Dead group, such as Zoe, believe Bill is alive, but that's a stretch I think. Feng disappears one night after drinking too much at a bar. she blacks out and wakes up in the realm. It seems that during her spiral, she stops competing completely, and probably live streaming too. This means that no one really knows where she is. Not her parents, not her fans, and it doesn't mention friends either. It's pretty possible that the entity used the drunkenness of those in the bar to its advantage, and took her in plain sight, with everyone around her believing they were simply in some kind of drunken stupor when a fog came rolling in. I think therefore she would simply be presumed missing. As a previously famous esports player and streamer, this would inevitably spread to the news or some forums in some form. The world would know she was gone, but due to her being out of the public eye for so long, would have no idea where she was, or could possibly be. David's disappearance can be solved with a line from his lore, where it's stated, when David King stopped showing up at the pub, the few friends he still had were not surprised. They figured he had finally picked a fight with someone stronger than he was. In a way, they were right. So, presumed dead, with likely no police investigations called in, due to the illegal activity that David previously participated in. Quentin too is probably presumed dead. Nancy is the only other person who knows of Freddy and what he's capable of. So when Quentin disappears, shortly after Nancy's mother dies in front of her, she likely presumes Quentin was killed by Freddy. She can't really go to the police or anything about a dream demon and be taken seriously, so she likely has to simply accept he is dead, maybe telling his family, who would otherwise presume him missing. Tapp is taken just after getting shot by Zepp Hindle. We can presume that even after he mysteriously disappears from the Gideon meat plant, there would have been some of his blood left behind. After the plant is investigated, he would be presumed dead at the hands of Jigsaw, more than likely. Kate is taken from her favourite spot in the woods of her hometown by the entity's claws too, and not the fog, making it possible, very slightly possible, that somebody saw the attack, especially as it's in a town. There was also evidence left behind, with her guitar, engraved with her initials. Kate, as a famous singer and performer, would be noticed when missing. However, it seems like this spot in the woods where she disappears is private, and not a location her fans would know of. I would think that she would be presumed missing, were it not for the guitar left behind. This, I believe, would lead people to think she is dead, after it is found, with her not being the type of personality to simply abandon those she loves willingly. Adam is in a deadly train derailment. He moves in front of an unhinged door to protect another passenger when he's taken. The law states no one truly knows what happened to Adam Francis. The school teachers imagined the worst when they watched the train derailment on the news and saw he was missing. Their fears seemed to be confirmed when Adam's bag was recovered from the crash site, but his body was never found. To this day, his uncle believes that Adam took off after the train crash, alive still, somewhere out there. There we go. It's probable that the passenger he attempted to protect ended up getting killed by the unhinged door, as there is no account of her mentioning Adam suddenly disappearing to a strange fog or spider claws. Jeff is taken from Mount Ormond Resort after he returns to Ormond due to his father's death. We also get an account of what was believed happened to him. After weeks of not hearing back from Jeff, his colleagues assumed that grief had gotten the better of him. His neighbor got tired of sitting his dog, which became more and more agitated as days went by. The dog became astray again, erring while seeking a familiar trail of Jeff's multi-scent. So, pretty sad to be honest. Jane's disappearance occurs when she is told the woman she believed was her mother isn't actually her mother. She drives back to talk it through with her father. She's stressed and so takes painkillers, driving across an icy road in darkness. The entity seems to affect her vision in some form, causing her car to flip and fall into a lake, or river of some kind. Her car is fished from the water by police, and a meticulous search is led for weeks to find her, probably due to her fame. They do not find her body though. She's believed dead, and the public, her mother and father, grieve for her. Her show, The Jane Romero Show, is then re-released, with special credits wishing her peace. So she's without a doubt assumed dead by the world. Ash is taken from the future in a Knights of Samaria bunker of some kind. Aside the one person we see in the finale of the series, there doesn't seem to be anyone else around. Aside her, we can presume that everyone believes Ash to be dead, after he went off to face the full-scale demon in the tank. With the world in an apocalyptic state, there would be no way for Brandy, Pablo or Kelly to find out if he is indeed alive. Nancy, Steve, and Jonathan are all taken around the same time between seasons 2 and 3, after investigating the Hawkins National Laboratory. It's well known that there is a portal to the Upside Down within, and so these three are probably assumed dead, or a similar situation to season 1 is occurring, where a search is happening for them, like the search for Will that happened in season 1. Yui is taken during the illegal Tokyo Kick 3000 street race. We see this moment in her chapter cutscene. She's leading in the race when she enters an unnatural fog. From the cutscene we can see that her competitors are very close behind her, and so would have seen her sudden disappearance. With likely nothing left behind, no Yui, no bike, nothing, she probably isn't assumed dead. There were witnesses surrounding the moment of her disappearance, and as someone with a degree of fame, this would undoubtedly hit the news and be investigated, maybe even deemed as a mysterious and inexplicable occurrence, ending up on some kind of documentary. However, maybe due to the illegal nature of the race, none of this would ever happen. Yui's gang, the Sakura 7, are also left without her, and her funding. They would certainly search to get to the bottom of her disappearance though. Zarina is taken during a tour of Hellshire Penitentiary, when she moves away from the group and to the Deathslinger's old cell. Zarina gained international acclaim after her documentary on the IR-28 gang and Clark Stevenson, the man who killed her father, was shown on the news. Clark at the time was an inmate in Hellshire. It's possible her sudden disappearance could be assumed to be down to the gang she exposed. That would certainly be a plausible reason over an otherworldly spider god snatching her. The lore mentions that Zarina pushed Clark's buttons to get a confession of a premeditated crime, so I feel the world's view on Zarina's disappearance would be down to the gang, who would almost definitely be blamed for it, especially as it seems to occur when she returns to Hellshire, the place where Clark was. For our Silent Hill characters, I feel it's pretty safe to say that their disappearances are all just put down to the strange occurrences at Silent Hill, and its own fog. Cheryl, Sybil, James and Lisa all interacted with it in some form. Some of them even died to it anyway, without the entity's intervention. A bit like the Stranger Things people with the Hawkins lab, the Silent Hill characters and their disappearances can all be explained away by Silent Hill's own mysterious properties. Cheryl would maybe be in a slightly different situation, as she's at the Crisis Intervention Center when she's taken, so there may be a more substantial investigation into her disappearance, particularly as there may have been co-workers around her at the time. Felix is taken during his restoration project on Dire Island, the location of his parents' disappearance years earlier. His disappearance will raise many questions, particularly as he leaves behind his girlfriend and unborn child. The fact he disappeared in the same location as his parents is pretty suspicious, and could result in a greater investigation into Dire Island itself. We can actually assume it didn't reach the news or anything, as Élodie didn't mention it in her lore, despite her being taken after him. She would have surely made note of his disappearance if she saw it on the news, say, partly because she knew Felix, and partly because she keeps up to date on this supernatural stuff and mysterious disappearances. Élodie is taken in the catacombs of Paris after being stabbed by a Black Veil cult member, and drawing a symbol with her blood that causes the entity to take her. The only person who knew her whereabouts was the Collector, her employer. If the Collector ever goes to follow up on her disappearance, they'd find Élodie's blood, and the Black Veil. Or both, probably. Likely, therefore, assuming she was dead. Élodie shut away almost everyone in the search for her parents, alienating even the pariahs with her theories. So, the Collector may be the only person to get to the bottom of her disappearance, and again, presume she is dead. Yun-Jin's sudden disappearance will likely attract a lot of media attention. The massacre committed by the Trickster at Mighty One Studios would likely be televised worldwide. The room after Trickster's finished is covered in blood, with the executives said to be carved up like meat. In the mess of a room, we can assume that it would be believed that Yun-Jin was just one of the many victims of the Trickster, and her blood would be somewhere in the room, and so assumed dead even if there was no body. Either that, or possibly she would be assumed to have been an accomplice of the Trickster and his murders, disappearing at the same time he does, without a trace. Jill, Leon, and Claire are all taken during the T-virus outbreak in Raccoon City. Due to the utter destruction of the city and the subsequent nuke dropped on it, it's pretty safe to assume that these three are simply dead. They were all known to be in Raccoon City at the time, so yeah, presumed dead. Chris, on the other hand, is in Europe at the time, investigating Umbrella. As no one else knew he was going aside the members of STARS, who were all now very much dead, or in the realm, his disappearance would be a mystery, possibly suspected to be Umbrella's doing, after Chris began investigating them. Mikaela is a really interesting case, as she gets taken literally in front of a crowd of people, whilst reading a horror story she wrote. Initially it may seem like a fun magic trick, until she disappears and is never seen again. We can presume this performance was recorded, and so would be the only recorded account of the fog taking someone. This, much like Yui's sudden disappearance, could possibly attract the attention of filmmakers or journalists who would be eager to recount Mikaela's disappearance on stage. The other people this would affect would be the people at the Moonstone, who would come and see her performances and where she worked. Her closest friend she's mentioned to have is called Julian, and he appears to have either been taken by the entity himself or killed by it. So again, that could only add to the mystery of Mikaela's own disappearance. Jonah disappears after going to the coordinates that he deduced from the numbers that appeared throughout his life. My best guess for Jonah's disappearance is that it may seem like a cover-up by the CIA after the civilian casualties that resulted from Jonah's message decoding. It's unclear how much Jonah's family know of his work, and if they would know if something was up. The CIA likely could track down where he went and got taken though, with him searching up the Chilean graveyard prior to going there. Yoichi is likely presumed dead at the hands of Sadako, after investigating the lighthouse where his students are said to have disappeared, in Izuoshima. Prior to this event, he was ridiculed and ostracized by those at his university, eventually fired from his job as a professor there. The boat he used to get there was shattered to pieces in a storm, so after appearing as a liability to his university and co-workers, and lost at sea, with his boat shattered, he is likely assumed dead, with the professors at his university being able to attest to his state. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and be sure to drop any additions or thoughts you have on how the survivors' disappearances would be perceived down below. Thanks, and goodbye.